I
We
was
love
trying
hip
to
hop.
discipline myself basically to see if I had an office whether I would actually be more productive, and it kind of worked for a while, right? Get yourself away from the family and everything like that. And Friday nights was like a night where everybody wasn't in that office building anymore, right? So I would basically set up something just like this with 4 different cameras in the corners of the room, and that was the early days of the internet to me, man. But
And
it's
just
very good footage back then.
remind me if I didn't hear the year. What year was this?
I think it was 2013.
2013.
Yeah,
So
because I have some audio files from there. It was pretty early. I know CKLN went off the air probably around 2011. So at that point, there was Reggae Mania was an online entity. At the time. So, yeah, it turned out to be one of the first, like live shows like what people are doing now, just showcasing local talent. So yeah.
So it's like your early podcasting, basically.
Damn right. I mean, CKLN did live to airs, right? So imagine taking a little Rogers cable modem and taping it to a door in a school and running the wires like 200 feet down to the DJ setup that's inside the gym or wherever it is, the club that we're playing. And you have to have the modem pointing out towards the outside in order to get a signal. And, people are paying like $1,500 for it. So it has to work. And just like you, I'm the engineer.
Yeah.
I'm the DJ. Like I'm the salesman. I'm the friggin', I don't know, man. Wearing a lot of hats. Wearing a lot of hats.
Multiple hats.
Damn straight.
Oh, man. Oh, well, listen, the record button is already going. If you could grab those headphones for me right there. And I want to make sure that you're as close to the mic as so we can get a proper amplitude.
I'm good.
We're an audio podcast, right? So we only need the headphones for the beginning because I'm going to run some tunes.
All right.
Let's start this off. Let's start this off proper.
That once we were brought here, we were
Listen, when you hear this song here, what goes through your mind, man?
Man, just hanging out with Chuck. Just actually being in his presence and being inspired by him and feeling his energy, Public Enemy was more than just an artist, they were like a whole cultural enrichment period for Black people, and hip hop was a way to get the message through. So he understood that. He still understands it today.
Yeah. And this particular song, from what I've done from my research, this is like one of your favorite songs. You know what I'm saying? You used to hear this going off in the jam, and you go off.
No, not that one. Probably. I mean, there was a few staples, but Rebel Without a Pause. Yeah, that was probably the song that made me become a big Public Enemy fan. I love the production. I didn't even understand what they were saying at first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just you get caught up in the music, and you know that it's good for you, and you know that it makes you kind of crazy a little bit. It made people crazy. That song had a bug noise in it, like a reverse whistle. That was so cool.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, I want to introduce you properly here for the people.
Yo.
And we're going to be taking people through a history of Toronto urban culture, not just hip hop, reggae music, dancehall. Okay. We have the originator of the first hip hop radio show in Toronto, in Canada, period. Okay. The introducer of people, pioneers in this game like Maestro Fresh West, Mishi Me. All right. He went on to get into the dancehall and reggae scene and bring you amazing radio shows. And like we just spoke about, like the first podcast, or one of the first podcasts, technically. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
We have the legend, the man, Ron Nelson in the motherfucking building. Let's go, man.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
No.
All we needed was a drum roll in there. It would have been good.
I try to be as I try to be as grand as I can with my introduction.
Yeah.
And for you deserve this here, man.
Well, thank you. It seems sincere, Friday. It seems sincere, man.
No, bro, you gotta understand, like, for us over here in broadcasting, for the media that I've been doing for the last, let's say, 8 years, you are an inspiration. You're a foundation person that we've built upon for years. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's the people over at the radio stations or anything, we have to always thank you for being the originator. You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate that. Thank you. And everything that I get credit for, I didn't even know I was doing anything really special. So it's nice to be recognized for that later on in life, So thank you very much, Friday, and all the people who kind of understood where he's coming from, where Friday's coming from. Then, yeah, big yourself up. All the people who go back to the 80s, before there was hip hop, there was rap. It's kind of like that. There's a whole forgotten era there that I represent, but it didn't start from the 90s, people. It started from the 70s, the late 70s, really, for me.
Okay, so even before we get into my chronological order of questions and stuff like that, let's break that down, because hip hop's 50th anniversary happened last year, 2024. Okay, and that's 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
So then if we backtrack, we're going back to 1984, if I'm not mistaken. But that's hip hop, not rap.
So there's a lot of people, there's a lot of 90s people around rap right now, the people from my era. So I guess they own houses and they have cottages, and they come out once or twice a year, actually show themselves now.
Yeah.
So they're older. So their voices are not as loud. That whole era needs more representation and outspokenness, you know what I mean? But with hip hop so young, we don't understand the trends yet, right? We're still setting the blueprint. So we're studying what's going on right now with when people get older in hip hop and stuff like that. But yes, just to go back to the whole question, there was a whole movement that started in the late 70s. I mean, Rapper's Delight did it for me, but there's songs out before Rapper's Delight that was building the hip hop scene in New York. And one of the things that Toronto doesn't give itself credit for is that we were a privileged city, because we had access to what was going on in America on our radio. So we kind of were educated and benefactors of that whole movement. I think we can take some credit for helping to nurture it as it grew right from the beginning. So what happened is there was a disco movement in the late 70s. There's no such thing as hip hop at that time, right? And disco was pretty well assassinated. And it took a nosedive, going from the number one charted music and pop to almost having no songs representing on the charts. If you want to talk about Sheik, Good Times, that was one of the last black music songs on the charts. They basically had an agenda to take out, black music, and that was being represented by disco music at the time. But something was born out of it before it died, and that was rap. We took from disco. Rapper's Delight was one of those songs that, thanks for Sylvia Robinson, where she had the ingenuity to turn a song that was so qualified to serve the streets, and how it sounded and how it was edited and how it was produced and how it had real original flavor that people could relate to.
Yeah.
And after that, it just kept going and going. But that was the late 70s. And now I was just a kid at that time when rappers came out. And I was one of those guys that used to look in the mirror and memorize a song that was, 12, 13 minutes. I think the extended version was one song. It was so long. And not only I knew the song, that's how big the song was, but our parents knew the song, young kids knew the song. And we we didn't know at that time that we had the capacity to memorize a 10-minute piece of literature. You know what I mean? We didn't understand that we had the ability, even though we couldn't sing, that we had another talent that would blow up, which was rapping, which almost anybody could do, especially if you're West Indian, you got a pep in your step. You know what I mean? So the music just started kind of sweeping the nation, and just like everything else, it evolved, because early rap, if you ask modern DJs today, they're criticizing and say it's so raw, it's so basic. But guess what? It was beautiful at the time. The early Fat Boy stuff, the early Houdini, the early Run DMCs. I mean, the Curtis Blows. There's so many classic songs that I don't consider hip hop.
Right.
That was, early rap. It had melodies. It had an innocence to it. You know what I mean? People were politically making statements. It wasn't about the braggalocious culture that we have now. So For about 4 years, I think the people who started the 50th anniversary thought through all of these things because they understood that there was a rap scene before there's a hip hop scene.
Yeah,
hip hop was an evolvement from the rap scene that came after disco.
Okay.
Right. So that's kind of how it happened. And funk was there at the same time. The rap music scene was there as well. So funk was part of the evolution as well. The Fantastic Voyage program played funk music and rap music, and then it played hip hop music. So even though it gets credit for being the first hip hop radio shows, there are other radio shows that came after that were exclusively hip hop.
Right.
But when I first started, you couldn't do that because there wasn't enough hip hop out there. I bought every hip hop song that was in the record store, and there wasn't enough to fill up a 3-hour show.
Now, just to bring it back, right? When you're first hearing these hip hop songs or rap songs, okay? Because you moved here from Jamaica, Pembroke Hall, Jamaica.
Yeah, man.
Right? Originally.
Kingston, Jamaica.
Right?
That's
10 years old.
Just like Kool Herc. I moved here at a young age. That's right.
Yeah, so you were hearing these songs like Rapper's Delight and stuff in Jamaica, or when you first touched down to Toronto?
No, when I was here, it's like 10 years old first. So I was listening to Chum and CFTR and all those pop music, radio stuff that was going on. I didn't bring any of the whole Jamaican experience with me, except for, my uncle being into the sound system and playing reggae every single day. So what was your question again? Just so I focus on the point.
Where were you hearing these early rap songs? Like,
okay, so WBLK is the easy answer to that. And another station called WOFO that was very hard to get late at night on your radio, but these were stations coming out of Buffalo. The WOFO station is a college station. And of course, at a time like that, if you ever went to New York, you would get murdered if you didn't come back with some cassettes from the KISS shows and the WBLS shows, Red Alert, Marley Marl, all that stuff. You did a lot of listening in record stores because they actually have people auditioning the music for you at that time.
Right.
And you also had record pools, like Daniel Calderon ran one of the black record pools where record labels would actually come out because DJs would gather once a week or once every 2 weeks in a room and basically give feedback to these record label representatives so they would know what songs are to push, basically, or maybe they would play some of the songs. And there was also one more entity, too, because we didn't have much happening on television at the time. There's no internet. There's no streaming and stuff. And
this is pre-much music.
Yes, pre-much music. You go to dances. You go to events. You go because the Sunshine's out there and the Kilowatts, and the City Crews, they were the radio at the time. So you go to an event, not just to dance. You go if you have an intuition for that there's music in you and you have good taste in black music and underground music and beats and you want to hear rhymes, you go to those events and you hear it on a loud, gigantic sound system that magnifies a sound. But guess what? You can't hear those records on the radio. You can't find them in the stores unless you go searching because they're playing the top 40 stuff that's on the top 40 radio stations. So, it's a memorable time.
Yeah.
As a DJ, it was cool to go to those record stores and just meet with other DJs and listen to songs. And like I said, it's interesting because back then you almost had to buy everything you heard. You could just look at the record label. And if it's Sugar Hill, you buy it. Yes. You don't question it. You go home and listen to it and you hope that it's good. You know what I mean? But yeah, there was a time where the crates could not be full because there was not enough music to fill the crates.
Yeah.
And that's the time I go back to.
So let's go back before DJing though. All right. Because your family touched down in Scarborough.
Yeah, technically Willowdale. Then Scarborough was across the street, so I moved to Scarborough afterwards. But yeah, right in the Scarborough borderline, Victoria Park, Ellesmere.
Let's call it the East End, right?
Definitely East End.
You went to Victoria Park High School.
Yeah, man.
Right,
big park.
Now, what was it like back then? Like this, we're talking about the 70s and stuff like that, right? What was Scarborough like back then?
Scarborough back then, let me see, it was pretty white. Like I remember. Like being the only black person in my public school, the only black male in my junior high school, or maybe one of two, which came after public school. By the time I got to high school in Victoria Park, there's probably about 18 black people. And we all used to sit together in the cafeteria and kind of hang out with each other and stuff. And, we had to deal with racism and all that stuff. You were recruited if you were black to every sport. that the high school had to offer. I ran long distance for 2 years, and I hate long distance running, and it was the most treacherous sport I've ever engaged in. But you get seduced as a Jamaican coming to Canada, because when we came here, we were in better physical shape than all the white people that were already here.
Right.
I mean, they were out of shape. If we got in fights, we used to win those fights because somehow being outside in Jamaica made you physically advantaged when we came to Canada. I'm not saying that's how it is now, but I'm saying back then, yeah, when you came here, you were the strongest kid in the school almost automatically. You were the fastest. Everything except going on skates and going on ice. As long as it was on the ground, we were privileged athletes. Doesn't matter what kind of sports. We're like, whatever, decathlon athletes kind of thing.
Yeah, they got y'all doing everything.
Everything.
So this is before the big immigration boost that started happening with all the people from the Caribbean, or that was during that?
That was my mom's generation, because they came here after moving to England. My parents did, and when they settled in, they sent for me. So we're talking about 72. About 1972.
Right.
So back then, yeah, when black people get the immigration policies were different then. They were looking for a lot of people to come in and help with the working force in Canada. And it was cool to have that opportunity at the time. So yeah, it was very West Indian and very barren. West Indians felt a sense of linkage back then because when you saw black people, we used to nod at each other because you didn't see a lot of black people at the time, right? We used to go to Bathurst near the subway station. That's where everybody went to get their haircuts. There was only one little West Indian section, kind of on Eglinton West. You know what I mean? At that time, when it came to entertainment again, just picture the musical environment. We were starving for music. That's why we had dances at the party center and at these little house. Even before the party centers, we're doing basement parties, right? And that's where my whole DJ Fantastic Voyage thing came from. We were playing in basements and serving a community that was underserved. There wasn't enough nightclubs. There wasn't enough black establishments. We faced barriers just being able to rent a hall because we were stereotyped and stigmatized as an audience that would create problems and violence, and there was distrust, and there's a history too of people who were dishonest, so it kind of spoiled it for a lot of other people who were trying, but it was hard to get your musical edutainment at the time when you moved here as a West Indian and you have to adapt to a Canadian environment. So you kind of grab onto what you can get, but that's where black people came together, okay, in that era that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
At dances. If you didn't get together at church or funeral or a wedding, you are getting together at a dance, especially if you're, 15, 16 and up. That's where you want to go. And that's when you can see your friends. That's where you can see other black people. You can relate to people who see things your way. And that hip hop wasn't formed at that time. Everybody was separated, right? So later on, the umbrella became CKLN radio.
Right.
And that was where hip hop black people kind of found their first umbrella and said, hey, we all have something in common here. And the radio is what kind of drew them in. I know I kind of jumped ahead there.
No.
That's basically what happened.
Cool. What I want to know before we get to the radio, right, is, these days and times, like I interview guys and they're all involved in something called Pollies, right? The street politics. What was it like back then? Like, did they have street politics back then?
Discover Cans, where quality meets innovation. With over 24 premium strains, each carefully sealed in our signature cans for maximum freshness. We're redefining the cannabis experience. Trusted Canada-wide for consistency and reliability. We deliver the product you deserve. Elevate your expectations and explore the difference with Cans. You can find Cans on Instagram at @Cans_Canada, or you can find them on the Diamond Club page, Diamond Club_Ontario. Make sure to use the code WeLoveHipHop on the way out and get yourself a little discount. Salute to the sponsors. Cheer.
Like, what were guys beefing? Like, guys beef over a bunch of different things now. Territory, shit online. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was, there's a multitude of gangs that are in the city now that there wasn't obviously back then. So when the street stuff was happening, what were the reasons where people would get into friction or stuff like that back in the 70s?
man, nothing was going on like things are going on now.
Yeah.
It was almost like this is the worst that we've ever seen in terms of conflict and crap, gangs and battles for power.
Mm-hmm.
We were just trying to survive. It's Black people.
Yeah.
There wasn't room for politics. Yes, there were gangs, but we didn't really feel them at that time unless you were kind of living in the wrong place at the wrong time or being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Remember, nobody had accolades, right? There was no stars. There were no hip hop stars, not even one. And even if you go outside of hip hop and look for R&B or funk, barren. Pop music running things, right?
Yeah. There was no reason for, I guess, envy and jealousy. Yo, this one guy, he's a star. He's getting it more than
it's
everybody
more like
else.
if you step on a man's toe, he might want to fight you. Or if you look at this girl the wrong way, or it's the typical stuff that people argue about, but it didn't come down to the same nuances that we see today.
Yeah.
It's a whole different thing. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I only saw one side of it, but I can speak for the side that I saw. And no, today is totally different, because again, you got to have something going to have something to brag about or something to fight about.
Yeah.
Back then, marijuana wasn't even a big thing. You go to these dances, didn't necessarily smell of weed.
Mm-hmm.
That's impossible to find today, right? But people just wanted to dance. Maybe they drink a little bit of alcohol, but there was a health movement at that time where people felt drinking Guinness was the healthy thing to do, but you don't drink beer,
Give you strong
Black
back.
people, we want exactly.
There's some water.
We need the code.
There's some waters for you there, man. So you stayed out of the bullshit. You know what I'm saying? You seemed pretty scholastic all the way through because you went to Ryerson.
Yeah.
Right? And going to Ryerson, this is when you started the first Canadian rap show, the Fantastic Voyage, which was already a thing.
Yes and no, though. Like when I went to Ryerson, because I was a student, the first day I went there, I applied at the radio station. They gave me a show, but it wasn't a rap show. I wasn't allowed to do a rap show. There wasn't enough music to do a rap show at that time. Not a full show. But even so, I had to play 33% Canadian content, like
CanCon.
most DJs, because of the CanCon rule. And you couldn't find enough Black music that was Canadian. That was good. I had good taste in music, and I had to play garbage a lot. So I would get in trouble by the management, I guess, because it was like a new wave rock feel. Their audience wasn't Black. It was underground. And I was sneaking in so much Black music. They actually let me go after the first radio show that I had there.
Yeah.
And I had to fight for it. And then I guess a couple of months later, when the station changed its call letters and became CKLN, they called me up and said, hey, we're going to give you a show and now you can play what you want. So I'm like, wow. And that's when it became a certified Black music radio show. Again, not a hip hop show at that time, but a rap music show where I played a lot of rap, a lot of the early rap. And I still snuck in the funk because there's a lot of good funk music. Funk was, again, incorporating rap. Even the song Fantastic Voyage, I think it has some rapping in there. Babe, come on, take a ride. You know? So I just became addicted to, that again, Black music flavor. It's a common denominator in rap as well, because we like the bass and we like the snappy snares. We like the ignorant harmonies. Like we like the expression that's life that we can relate to as people. We like when music moves us. So no matter what music I championed, because I did rap music and then I did reggae, as you know, dancehall reggae specifically, that bass element was always there, right? That's what attracts us. That's what's appealing. Do you remember ever going by a venue and before you even go inside, you can hear the bass coming through the concrete walls? And it's shaking. Yo, man, you understand? That
I know those ones.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I gotta get in there.
Yeah, gotta get in there. And then you walk around the corner and there's a lineup and you gotta wait to get in there. And you gotta go through security and you gotta, make sure whatever you have on you, you put it away before you go in. So your friends might have to wait for you to come back from the car. Who knows, man? There's so much going on. But once you get inside, it's like, yeah, nice.
Yeah. Yeah. You made it into a movie, it felt like.
Yeah, and you're hearing the music of your life. Because again, unless you got it on cassette, you can't hear it on the radio on a regular basis. You got to fight to get it. You got to go out.
Yeah.
It's an exciting time, man. I'm sorry a lot of the kids out there now did not get to live through that, where there's an innocence to the whole thing, because since rap music and dancehall, I haven't found another kind of music to make me go crazy yet. You know what I mean? And that music came into my lifetime. It wasn't there before, but it appeared during my lifetime. It was born during that time. So that's a great experience for me. But it doesn't matter what kind of music. Music is such a powerful medium that at some point in time, it might take over you. And I like when new things take over me, that come out of nowhere, organic experiences that just throw me off. And this music was almost unpredictable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Nobody knew it would become this multi-billion-dollar industry. Nobody gave it a chance. The reason why most of my friends right now are very few, it's because when I was playing hip hop music and sticking to it, all my DJ friends I'm talking about, 90% of them scorned hip hop. It was too hardcore for them. They went to R&B. They went to the 19 and over audience that likes to socialize and drinks, nice people, dress friendly and everything. That's a safe,
it's
conservative.
actual real music they're singing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were cutting up rap music, and I'm not even called the sound systems names out there, but I could name a few, and you go, "Wow, really?" Yeah. The reason there are R&B and funk sound systems playing out now, holding on to that old crowd, is because they weren't attracted to hip hop. It was too rough for them. They couldn't relate to it. Yeah. And that's the route most people went. Most people are still wanting smooth sounds and nice melodies, and not everybody's attracted to hip hop in its raw essence.
Yeah. And not to sidetrack too much, but I guess that's kind of where hip hop hip hop has gone now, where it's very melodic and stuff like that, because not everybody just wants just words flying at you at a mile a minute type of thing. They might want to just hear a melody. And the verse come out melodically.
Well, I keep thinking that, but I have this kind of gap between trying to be nonpartisan, neutral, objective. I don't know how old you are, but I'm 62.
I'm 50, or I'm going to be turning 50 soon. All
right, so we're not quite dinosaurs yet, but we're elders, right?
Yes.
Now, I don't know if you have kids or not, but
no.
My son is he's a 2000 baby, so you know how old he is. He's about to turn 25 this year, and he represents that generation where you can't tell them that their music isn't the best music of their life.
Right.
They have to learn that as they get older and graduate, because it becomes that political argument where they have a right to love the music that's relevant and to them at this point in their life for a lot of other reasons that we don't know. So I'm one of those guys that said, yeah, you missed the best era of music, because I lived it, but who am I to tell them that?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm one of those guys that I'm trying to keep my mouth shut now, because I don't have a very strong linkage to the hip hop music that's coming out right now. It's not taking me over like it did when rap music first came out. But I think that's, again, because of my environment shaping me, right? When you get older, you get more distracted. And sometimes it's not just hip hop that's not your life, but sometimes it's music that's not your life anymore, because you don't have enough time to take yourself away and put yourself in that environment because you got other responsibilities.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know what's good anymore. I just kind of allow everybody to enjoy what they enjoy without kind of interfering and telling them what's good, kind of thing. And that's it. That's evolution for me, because my job when I was on the radio was to criticize everybody's music. You know what I mean? And to give them some feedback, because there wasn't a lot of places they could get feedback.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But years later, now I'm one of those guys making music and looking for feedbacks, but that's another conversation.
No, we'll get to the music. I got that on my list as well.
No worries.
Now, the Fantastic Voyage, right? Can we go to that?
Yeah, man.
Because that's the show that you brought over to Ryerson, but it was already a brand that you had created prior to that.
Yes.
So can we get into the creation of that and, even just how you found the name?
It's from the Lakeside song called Fantastic Voyage, which again dates the birth of the sound. I think that album came out in either 82 or 83. I'm not sure. One of the two.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a Trinidadian guy who was a friend of mine in high school. His name was Ian Khan, and he was a DJ. And he had the turntables. He had the mixer. He was one of those smart guys, didn't have to study to do well on a test because he's just naturally smart. And one day he says, hey, my dad got us a loan. I'm like, what? I didn't even know what a loan was. I'm like, what are you talking about? So he had the ingenuity to take our DJ passion to another level because we used to mix records a lot and practice for hours and are just blending two songs without making a mistake while we're trying to make our cassettes. And then that was an age too where I picked up the mic and rap while he was mixing, but we had belt drive turntables, not direct drives, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that changed everything. Once we were able to buy a couple of speakers and an amplifier and an equalizer, we started touring high schools as the Fantastic Voyage DJ crew. And we had this book that had a list of every high school in Ontario, their addresses, phone numbers, and the list of the people in charge of entertainment or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I did my first marketing ever. So we created a sales package and sent it to every single school.
Damn.
The next thing you knew, we were playing out in all different places in Ontario. I mean, we went up to Meaford, we went to Dunnville. These are places that are far away, man. We had to rent a van, put the 2 speakers in there, and rock an entire gym with 2 speakers. And I'm not talking about the good quality speakers that you can plug in now. We're talking about like just regular audio speakers back in the days. So not quite a sound system. And then I became social convener for my school. So I hired myself for the following year doing all the school dances. Did all the junior high school dances, asked the people in Jane and Finch. There, I was a favorite in that area to do all the high schools, junior high schools. So that's where Fantastic Voyage was first formed. That song was inspiring to me. I loved it, and we named our crew after it, and we started playing out as DJs.
Mm. So during that time, right? You mentioned the CanCon, right? Who was getting played as far as rap CanCon?
During that time, there's really nobody. There was nothing. I said it before. There's nobody trying to rap at that time.
Well, actually,
correct me if I'm wrong, but I know there's one artist who has passed away. Okay, I'll have to find it on my phone again because we actually did a song in tribute to him, and he gets credit for being Canadian. But he's again, you can't imagine a world like that, can you?
So there was no Canadian rappers at all?
If there was, I'd remember.
That's crazy to me, man.
I'd remember. I mean, I came late. I put out a song in 1988, and that's one of the earliest songs in rap. So just look at that as part of the blueprint. B-Boy Destruction. Some people have a problem trying to figure out what came out before that.
Time and listen to my words. Listen, all you dissing, I got something to say. There's a better way, and it goes this way.
And that was 1988. You can ask yourself the question: how many rappers were out before 1988? It's a small list.
Yeah.
You know?
So when did
from Canada, of course.
From Canada, because let's be specific. But when did the likes of Maestro and Mishi and Rumble start to come into the picture?
Late 80s. So the Fantastic Voyage program started in 83. And the evolution as such was I was playing cassettes. Some of the first rappers sounded horrible because we didn't have the technology. We didn't have the instrumentals. There were no beats whatsoever. We had to rap. I was playing stuff on the early shows where people were rapping over funk music. And we didn't even understand the whole beats and breaks and beats stuff that Americans were rapping over. So it was in the late 80s, 70, 87, 88, 89. By the time 89 came around, Maestro was already out. And Mishi Me was out. Rumblin' Strong was out. People like Kish came later. Dream Warriors was a 90s story. Again, that was around 92, 91, 92. There's people like Be Cool that, tried some stuff. Actually, I think he got a Juno for something. I might be wrong in that, but he's, there again, I'm trying to think of people who were actually on the radio, but
MCJ and Cool G, they had their song out there.
Yeah, they did. They came a little later as well. But not much, I might have missed a couple, but I was on the radio at that time. So someone who had an obligation to play Canadian content couldn't find enough Canadian content. You think of what are the first albums in Canadian hip hop history? Don't know. We don't really know, right?
That's crazy.
It's hard to figure it out.
Yeah.
So it's a land of opportunity. Like I said, the irony to me was in '88 I put out a record and I knew at that time it was already late. But I'll tell you something that a lot of people won't understand. There was an attitude that Toronto still has now a little bit, and that we had then, and it was like people weren't believing in the game and putting their money where their mouth was. I had tons of people who were great rappers around me all the time, people that were skilled in the game, true B-boys. And why didn't they put out a record? I put out a record in '88, and if you look at the year 1988 and try and figure what other Canadian rappers put out a record in that year, it's pretty disgusting because hardly anybody did.
Yeah.
And I'm like nobody. I'm a radio DJ, fed up with being, assaulted at the concert hall every time I had a big jam. It would be like a gang thing where they try and get in, and it became like a pattern for all of my big. When you get big, you get trouble following you. So I put that record out just out of frustration,
right?
Not trying to put anything on the map. But years later now, when people are studying Canadian hip hop, they're like, it's hard to find what came out on vinyl before '88. There's a song that my boy did, Sugar C and Dexa Mac. He can't find that record, but it's called What Is This World Coming To? And it was in the early '80s. That's actually one of the first Canadian records, but they went and made that in New York. And to this day, they can't find an original copy of that vinyl anymore. Because again, it got lost in the shuffle. People didn't know the significance of that. They were doing things early at that time.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't have a lot of good tracker. I mean, we're living in a world of Drake now, in a world of where Canadians suddenly leapt up, but theoretically it happened quicker than it should have, in terms of the percentages. It's almost like a fluke that we have so little on the battlefield representing and shooting and firing, yet we got the best snipers out of the entire universe of Battlefield. So I'm talking about Drake. I'm just talking about the fact that, if you look at the numbers, it's kind of awesome that he's at the top,
Yeah. And we have a multitude of talent that's coming out of our city now.
Yeah.
Now, at one point in time, you became a show promoter, but it was basically from the request of the people. They were like,
damn right.
The lack of hip hop and the lack of hip hop shows and everything, just, period. It was like, you need to do the shows.
Hope you're enjoying the video. Do me a quick favor while you're here and smash that like button so we can break the algorithm. And join the comment gang and subscribe. It's free.
Yeah, you know what, man? That shaped my whole life. I'm one of those guys that I became a real sucker, because I didn't care about what I wanted to do. I'm one of those people that, like a lot of DJs, have the same thing in them. You like to please people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you're doing this radio show and you're the only one doing it, that promoting that type of music, it's one thing. But then when you take live calls, like when people are calling in, you actually get to hear what the people want.
Mhm.
And it became overwhelming at one point because after a couple of years of the Fantastic Voyage program, after a very short time, they're like, how could, bring these people up? I think they think I was a white guy. I sounded white when I was on the radio, not black. So they thought maybe I had the qualification or I had money or something that, whatever the case is, they kept pressuring me,
the complexion for connections.
Yeah, exactly. So it became an opportunity. I didn't plan to be a promoter. I didn't study to be a promoter, but I became the #1 rap and hip hop show promoter because it became an addiction. It became my life. It changed my life and it shaped my life. And it made me into a guy who never really had a chance to get employed at a normal job for my whole life. At this stage in my life, I can look back and say that it was that fork in the road, and it's given me a life of instability, but it's also given me a very exciting history because when I was promoting back then, it was like a daily ritual just to wake up and you're in the office. As soon as you open your eyes, you're in the office. It's time to talk to the agents and see what formula you can come up with to bring to Toronto. And then you got to call all your friends and bounce it off them and see if it'll work. And I'm also competing with myself because I'm like, I had this feeling I had something going here, but there were other promoters who I thought would step in and do things that would compete with me or would be bigger. So I had this kind of sick mentality where I wanted to be consistent, just bringing shows all the time because I saw the smiles on people's faces and all my friends were in the business. So they didn't care about the money. They just wanted to see these artists themselves as well. It was the most exciting thing. Back then, seeing a hip hop concert was one of the highlights of your whole life for the whole year. You can see concerts now every single month, every other week, and be pleased. But back then, nobody else had the courage, I guess, to mess with something that was, had no proven track record, something that had elements of difficulty because you had to bring people across the border and get work permits. And, some of these artists that I brought up here had never gone out of America before. So it was their first time going to a foreign territory when they came here. So they had to learn how to behave at the border. I remember Bismarck Key getting in trouble, cussing one of the immigration officials at the Fort Erie border. And, he wasn't taking it because, he was so self-righteous in who he was. He didn't respect the authority at the time. And I just remember his last words, I don't care. I'll just call my pops. My pops will come get me. And, he doesn't even know where he is. He's like, come on, man.
You're like 4 or 5 hours away from New York right now, bro.
I'd had to plead and beg that immigration officer, like, look, these guys have never been out of, America before. Just trust me. Like, I've got this. Like, and eventually I got through. But, a lot of memories from back in those days, man. But being a promoter has been a privilege. I'm glad that I I think it was so relative to doing the radio show too. It helped me understand hip hop more completely. And, it's not been a one-dimensional experience for me. I've seen it from a lot of angles. I've seen its evolution. I've seen it become political to non-political to becoming, completely barren and skeletal to becoming musical and poppy. We have hip hop now, not just hip hop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've seen people who can now say they own their own airplanes because of hip hop. I mean, who would have thought? You know what I'm saying? And women in hip hop now are stepping up and they're filling in the void that the men are leaving right now. That's open for innovation and creativity. So, it's constantly moving, constantly changing, and it's not music that I listen to every single day, but I'm making that music every single day now. I'm rapping every single day. I'm enjoying kind of my whole conversion into doing something years later that I could have been doing years ago. So yeah, we'll talk about that later, but
no,
you got me.
It's a beautiful thing, man. And even with those shows, right? Can you give me a show that one of the shows that you were most proud of? Like, This person
Eric B. and Rakim, man.
Eric B. and Rakim.
Yeah.
I want to take a quick break from this episode to give a big shout out to Only Loud, Canada's one-stop shop for your favorite legacy brands and all things loud. Only Loud provides mail order delivery nationwide and same-day delivery to those in the Ottawa area. Check them out at onlyloud.ca or follow them on their socials, Instagram at onlyloudcanada or on Snapchat onlyloud.ca for more exclusive content. Only Loud is not just a product, it's a lifestyle. Big salute to the sponsors. Cheer.
There's actually two. There's Eric B. and Rakim, because I really like those guys.
Yeah.
Like I love their style.
That's the
I
God.
love their music. And it's nice when you love music. When music becomes a business, you don't love it as much anymore. When music becomes your tools, you don't love them as much anymore because it's just there to work for you, to help you work and make money. But at that point, I loved the music and I was scared. I never thought I would be able to actually bring those guys here in their peak. Okay, that when they were hot.
This is paid in full times then.
Paid in full time. And I think that was the most ever paid that I think it was $10,000 US I had to pay at that time for Rakim and Eric B. And that was a lot of money.
Hold on. I don't want to interrupt
That was a lot of
you.
money.
Hold your thought for a quick second. All right. And comment gang, don't be like, yo, why are you interrupting the man? We just have to put that into perspective. These guys were fish grease, stupid hot at that time. Like the equivalent of what Drake is of hotness now.
1987.
1987. And 10 racks was like the highball amount to pay.
Yes, for a rap artist to come here and do one show, they price artists accordingly, right? So they look at the size of the venue. The concert hall can hold 2,000 people.
Right.
And then you got to convert the US to Canadian and all that stuff. But it wasn't just the money. But yeah, that was one of the Eric B. and Run DMC at that point were two of the highest artist fees that you had to pay as a promoter. And then you got to pay the airfare and hotel and all that stuff on top of it. But it was actually a fair price. I made money off the show. Let me see. It was exciting because these guys were really good. They were new. And the most important thing was getting them at the right time. And this was a time where hip hop was being associated with violence and stuff. And of course, a big fight happened that night. I can see the concert even right now where all of a sudden it goes from a solid crowd to be a big circle, a hole in the middle because when everyone just kind of crushes. But it was great that I pulled it off in the end. I was happy. I felt blessed because it was one of those shows that made me really nervous. When I was promoting back then, there is no pleasure, even if your tickets sell in advance. There's no guarantee because you don't know when niggas gonna fuck shit up. You know what I'm saying? So that threat was always there. And you don't get to breathe and celebrate until the artist is on the plane and going back to America.
Nice.
I mean, I've had hotels that were completely vandalized with graffiti and stuff because these artists are from New York. You know what I mean? So they don't care about me. I got to pay the bill for that stuff. You know what I mean? There's Nice and Smooth. Their manager tried to bring a gun across the border when they came up here. You know what I mean? And that was back then. He had to go back. There's a whole bunch of stories, man. You don't want people to have to be sent back.
That's crazy.
Yeah, there's crazy shit. But,
So,
yeah.
with everything all this hip hop history that we've been able to, what are we here? Like 49 minutes, we've been getting into some real hip hop history. What turned you off where you were like, I'm going to reggae or I'm going to dancehall?
Turn me off?
Because you got turned off, fam. It wasn't just like, I love dancehall too, I'm Jamaican. Hip hop let you down at some point. Can we talk about it?
Yeah, sure. You want to ask me a question or you want me to just talk?
Let me know what made you switch.
Well, I don't think hip hop let me down. I think that I recognize the fact that hip hop was a youth movement and my plate was so full that I could no longer be an expert in the opportunity that I had to do. And I had students around me who were qualified. They had that same fever that I had when I first started. So I knew that it was time to pass it on. And I was also being pressured to pass it on. And when people want something and I see an opportunity, you know what, I'll give it to them. And that was the case with with X and all his boys,
Salute.
right? The power move that came after me. They had their little meetings and stuff, but basically they wanted to kind of take me out of the picture and become the picture themselves. And these are my friends and stuff. So I'm not saying that in any that's hip hop, right? That's what happens. So I knew that I had the security of continuing to do great things despite me giving that up. And there's one other factor too, that I had this track record of delivering everything that I had promised as a promoter, except for my last show at Varsity Arena. And I don't want to talk about that show, but that show, I work with another investor for the first time in my life. I've always used my own money. Okay, let this be a lesson to some of y'all, okay? But I got pimped basically because these guys had a nice office with nice furniture, wore suits and ties. I thought they were like a corporation that had lots of money and they wanted to work with me.
Right.
So they used me to get their first concert experience where they wanted a piece of it as well, because it seemed like hip hop and rap was the greatest thing. And I had this name for myself. The problem was I did not partner with the show that happened on the Friday night in Montreal. And they lost all their money in Montreal. They didn't tell me. They let me open my doors on the Saturday night in Toronto. And when it came to paying the artists their money, there was no money. That was terribly embarrassing for me.
Damn.
To the point where, you know, I've never run from anything. I had to run out of that venue and hide and disappear so that they wouldn't kill me, basically. I thought people wanted to kill me that night. Ask John Bronski about that if you ever see him or talk to him. He was one of those guys that I talked to when I was running. You know, like, what's going on? So since then, I decided not to do another hip hop show. I felt like, you know what? I can't come back for this. I lost my credibility. And now I realize I could have come back from it, but nobody took over from where I left off, kind of thing. You know, I'd done my time and I gave it all I could as a promoter, but CKLN was still there for me. And what was going on at the time was that there was another radio star in CKLN championing reggae music. His name is David Kingston. And he had a show that I used to listen to all the time. When I first started smoking weed, it was sitting in a car with my two neighbors and listening to CKLN on a Sunday night when David Kingston was on, because the dancehall reggae that he was playing was like nothing we'd ever heard before.
Yeah.
It was like hip hop was beautiful, but now dancehall reggae was changing to dancehall. And that was beautiful too, just seeing its kind of evolution and living through it. And of course, the ganja music helped as well, right? And
definitely.
Ironically, despite David Kingston being such a legend in the whole game, very respected, very educated, you know, very enriched with experience, and I believe this man loves Jamaica. I believe he got married there. You know, one day he decided he didn't want to do it anymore. Advantage Ron Nelson, because I'm a black person. My station manager, she was black. And one of the things she said is, I think a reggae show should be hosted by a black person. So I was already filling in while they were trying to figure out who was going to take over that slot. So she just said, why don't you just keep it? So that's how I ended up getting that opportunity. Partly because I was black, and that hardly works for you as an advantage, it seems. But I was glad in that situation it did. And I knew nothing about reggae music compared to what David Kingston knew. I just liked it as a DJ.
Right.
You know what I mean? But there was this thing called dancehall to me that was very similar to hip hop. It actually was, there are so many parallels, not with reggae music and the singing stuff that's very sappy and top 40. I'm not talking Bob Marley and Dennis Brown. I'm talking, you know, the Beanie Mans and the Bounty Killers and the Supercats and, you know, the underground artists that have an attitude and a
chant.
And exactly, you know, their patter is exciting, just like with some of the rappers that I like.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they're doing the same thing except in a dance hall way. And then this guy called Vybz Kartel comes along and he suddenly becomes my favorite artist because he's so good. There is one person who separates himself from the rest like an all-star athlete worth $500 million a year. Not over 14 years, a year. That's how good Vybz Kartel was. So I got caught up, you know. Dancehall to me was as an exciting an opportunity as hip hop was, except now dancehall is something that I found you can't fix it. People thought I would be able to come in and fix it, but it has to remain raw and imperfect to have its true essence and its true flavor. It's something that shouldn't be fixed. That's how I feel after being involved with it. But some of my best friends became people from like King Turbo and Black Reaction and stuff like that, right? And Black Supreme and a whole bunch of different sounds. Because then the concerts that I used to do in hip hop, including some of the battles now, I applied some of those same concerts to dancehall reggae. Not only was I playing the music on the radio, but just like with hip hop and the Fantastic Voyage program, Friday Night Reggae Mania became that, again, a number one show that carried with it a host who also did promotions, except now there is something not called battling anymore. It was called sound clashing. And I became a sound clash addict, and all these guys, just like the people who said, Ron, do a concert in the hip hop days. All these guys are saying, Ron, you got to do some clash. You got to do some clash.
Yeah.
It cost me thousands of dollars to do clash, like the Mighty Crowns and stuff. They don't come cheap, but that became a whole other 10 years. And I can say historically, I did some things that were creative and innovative that other people have never done in dancehall sound system culture, and gave a lot of sounds and artists an opportunity to get airplay and to get, radio exposure. And again, I think if I was to say what's wrong with the Toronto hip hop scene, I would say that there is not a promoter who is dedicating his life to, maybe there's some that comes close, but if you make it your life, then you could actually shape shift a culture, because Canada is a land of opportunity. There's so much room for innovation, but not enough people are doing it. If you're a dancehall artist, you know that, because how many times a year do you actually get to work on a stage because somebody calls you up and go, yeah, I want you to be part of this or part of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I used to do monster jams where, you send me your demo. Even if we've never heard of you before, we're going to put you on the stage if you qualify. Nobody does that kind of stuff anymore.
Yeah.
There's no talent shows that appeals to the artists that you feature on the show. You know what I mean? It's every man for himself, every rapper for themselves. And there's a lack of a platform that allows us to qualify for Olympic style rapping. Because if we don't get a chance to perform in our own backyards, how are we supposed to shine when we perform abroad? You know what I mean?
Practice? Yeah.
We're supposed to practice. And there's, again, you can be that guy. You can make it your life to dedicate yourself to helping to shape an industry, but you might have to go in your own pockets if you aren't creative enough to get sponsorship. But somehow there should be a foundation that is looking out for a practice field.
Yeah.
I think that's holding us back. We need to get booed. We need to get cheered. We need to know what it's like to not just be in the studio, but to be on the stage and to see the pros and cons of audience response. It might qualify you to write a better song. You never know, but there's something wrong with lack of performance opportunities. People are paying money to open up for big name artists. That's not a secret anymore, but promoters are my friends, and I'm telling you, they tell me, yeah, we charge so-and-so like $2,000, $5,000. Why? Because he wants to open up and he wants to, get the video footage of him on the stage in front of the 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people that are going to have there. So it's worth it to him.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? I know you're talking about specifically now, but there was a space of time from the time that you were doing shows in between, even from my time in the early 2000s, where we did a lot of rap shows. We did a lot of shows.
Mm-hmm.
Then that curbed, not even curved, that just dipped completely. What happened? What happened to our scene where now we have a lack of live performances locally?
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying, though. I don't know what happened, but we need more players in the scene that's willing to be the organizers and creators. And if it's not an organization, there's so much room for improvement here. There's money in hip hop in Canada, and some of these foundations should be built to help improve the talent that we have here. Give them opportunity to sharpen their skills. So yes, at one time there was an environment that would support artistry, but now it's like you got to look hard for that.
Yeah,
it's not there. Nobody. Yeah, I don't know. That one of the one of the factors I think is that historically, when I've seen people try, they get very small audiences. So the image you get is that Toronto's this big market, but when it comes to local talent, put them on a stage and they don't necessarily draw
They
people.
don't draw the audience.
And I don't know why that is, right? I'm not involved in today's movement of promotions, but promoters have the responsibility of trying to fix that problem. Maybe be a more creative marketer. I don't know. Maybe you need to give up more comps. Whatever the reason is, it doesn't just come down to the talent being able to draw, but you should be able to draw too as a promoter. So
no, for sure.
it's a way to do it better.
Yeah,
you know?
and there are people who are draws, but we also have the issue with the authorities stopping shows and stuff like that. So like a Casper or somebody, even like a Top 5 or somebody to do a show, they're gonna shut that shit down. They're like, it's gonna get shut. It's gonna get shot up. They're worried about rival gangs and all types of stuff. So a lot of the people who actually will bring in, like what the Mod Club, I don't know what they call it now, but whatever that place is, they can pack that out. They can pack out Opera House probably, but the cops are gonna shut that shit down.
Okay, so why are they shutting it down? Because of the culture of the audience that will come there, right? Or the artist knows that that's a culture that is their hip hop culture, and either you got to take it or leave it. So you have to question who makes those decisions, and are they responsible decisions? Because you don't want people getting hurt, right? But eventually they will be on the stage somewhere, and they will get their chance to perform. But guess what? A whole year goes by, and then if you've been keeping a record, how many opportunities do you ever have? Because it's one of the things I don't like about Toronto. I think we need more gamblers here, people who will take chances on art. And the rappers that you mentioned, I mean, they have names for themselves, but you should be able to, there's so much talent here. Somebody should be able to do a Monster Jam type show where you put 20 artists on a stage. They don't necessarily have to have a name for themselves. Just give them a chance to do one song or 2 songs each. It could change their lives, right? Will you make money from doing that? I don't know. Maybe it's not about the money for doing something like that, but man, Toronto has such a great reputation for being so, privileged because we're so close to New York. We got good MCs here, good rappers here, but they need more marketing because we need to know who those people are, especially when you're older like me. I feel lost. I don't know who's who nowadays. You know what I mean? Radio don't run things anymore, right? It's not about radio now. It's about what the street says. It goes back to what the streams say as well, because there's actual statistics now that you can see what people like and who's moving what.
Yeah,
but it ain't fixed everything yet.
Yeah. Well, even like where we are now, right? You've gotten to see like pioneer MCs like Maestro and Mishi. And then the evolution to the Cardinals and the Socrateses and stuff. And, we've grown. And then, boom, we get Drake, who takes it to a whole other level. Like I'm talking about international biggest artist in the world, not just Canada.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on like the blow up to be able to get us to that point?
I don't think us can take any credit. We didn't make Drake. Drake cannot credit Canada, I don't believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, for his breaks in life. And I think I'm one of those people that people are not probably going to like what I have to say, but I actually really like Drake. He seems to have a lot of people who don't like Drake out there. They don't want to give him his props and his flowers. And that's such a Toronto thing. That's been happening forever and ever and ever. We have a gem here and we don't recognize it. We still see the stone instead of the gem inside the stone because we're jealous and envious. and, it's some of it's the same reason why people don't like Elon Musk. We just don't like when people get too rich sometimes. So we have a right to have a little attitude. It's like, I know it's one of the things with Bishop passing away on the threads. It's like, somebody called Drake out because they're like, where were you, Drake? Because you didn't give him any money when he was needing money for this and that. I'm saying, whoa, anything that Drake does is like going to be picked on. But, you may want to call it an anomaly, but I think it's just a symbol of Canada's strength. We're not America's 51st state, but we have benefited from being close to the state of New York, whether it's Buffalo or American. I'm telling you, that gave us an advantage. So Drake had the environment to shape him into the rapper that he is now, whether it's what he listened to or what he saw, and then it came down to his own lyrical skill and ability. But just like some of the biggest artists that's ever made it in Canada, whether it's Drake or the Dream Warriors or Maestro or even Mishi, what's the common denominator there? Americans came in and scooped them up. It wasn't anybody from Canada that had the insight or the foresight to recognize these diamonds in the stones. They only saw the stone. American entrepreneurism, that's what has taken credit for our biggest artists. When you think about that,
Yes.
there's nobody at a record label who had a job that said, yeah, that's the man.
Yeah, or an
that's
investor.
the artist,
Yeah.
or an investor. So we missed it. Like, I'm happy for Drake, but Drake ain't gonna thank Canada for making his opportunity. And I still think he's the most politically correct artist in hip hop as well, because my boy has played it safe most of his life. I know there's a whole controversy about Drake right now, but I still like his stuff. And a lot of people I'm around, they're like, why do you like Drake so much and stuff? But guess why? Because guess what? I'm older now and I like melodies and I like harmonies. I like the fact that in reggae, we have something called a sing J, not a DJ, but a sing J. A sing J is the few artists who can sing as well as chat.
Yeah.
So why isn't it that in hip hop, there is nobody better at doing both than Drake? Drake has a #1 female fan base for any artist who could sing and rap because he does it better than the rest of them. I mean, Drake is one of those artists. Later in his life, he's going to be able to do shows where people are just going to be throwing their panties at him when they take it off right there in the stage and throw it on him, because he's that, good looking actor. Like he can play any part. So people are going to question whether he's real. Americans have this insecurity thing. It's like in one of my song lyrics where I'm saying basically Team America, they wish they had Drake. They wish, when you really think about it, they wish they had Drake, but they don't. And, Kendrick is good for now, thanks to Drake. When I first asked X about Kendrick, he's like, well, Kendrick is like an artist that does a lot of good songs, but none of them really are radio hits, but he's a very good artist.
Yeah.
Just not. And then now he's got his first big radio hit, to me anyway.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens after that. But I think that whole battle was good for Drake, because sometimes you got to lose to win. It's going to make you a better artist. So you ever beat up a guy and all of a sudden for the rest of your life, that guy is really nice to you when he sees you kiss ass? Yeah.
I'm writing that down. Sometimes you gotta lose to win.
Sometimes you gotta lose to win. I'll tell you, man. Drake will be a better artist because of it. He's starting this next stage right now, so I fully expect him to overcome all those barriers. And he's got his security thing because he's got the women in lock. And male hip hop artists have a problem with that. It's hard for them to appeal to women and men 50-50. At the same time, and Drake is right in the middle.
Yeah.
He's right in the middle. He's loved by both audiences, and not many hip hop artists can say that.
Oh man, salute to the boy, man.
Yeah.
Even with radio, because Drake has been a radio darling over the years, right?
Mm-hmm. Canadian content, right?
Yeah.
You know how many Canadian artists didn't get played because Drake got played instead? That's the one thing I don't like, is that all these radio stations they did it the easy way. Good for Drake, but they just kept playing Drake, and that he had so much good music. That's all the Canadian content you needed. So a lot of artists did not get played from Canada because Drake got played. There you go. I'm just being a provocateur, but yeah.
No, well, it actually leads into my question, because like I feel like I heard in other interviews that you had like some gripes with Canadian commercial radio over the years. Can you maybe explain some of the issues that you had with Canadian commercial radio? You
should just put it more raw, guy. Like, don't go around it. Just tell me what's on your mind, man. You're trying to take the conservative route right now. I'm drawing you out.
Okay. There's different stations like Flow and stuff like that. Give me your issues with these different stations.
So there's not a lot of stations in radio in Canada. You can only go so far to get a commercial opportunity and still play black music. So when I was doing CKLN,
Mm-hmm.
there was no Flow. All the power was on community radio at that time, and then Flow came around one day, and it changed the whole dynamic of everything, especially after CKLN went off the air. So a lot of people at that time were thinking, "Oh, Ron's like definitely gonna get his opportunity now to work in a commercial station because he's earned it." Right? I actually have my degree in broadcasting from Ryerson.
Mm-hmm.
So when Flow came around, I was working as a professor at York University, teaching the very first hip hop course in Canada. And I did that for 11 years, but I had to make a decision about Flow because I don't think I could have done both at the same time, because being a professor required a lot of time away from the university, marking, tons and tons and tons of marking
Mm-hmm.
that I had to do. So I gave it a shot anyway. So I'm a guy, I don't do very well in interviews. That's one of the things I will say about myself. I don't shine. I'm more of a person. Teach me, I will learn, and I will like take it to a whole different level. But sometimes you have to train me.
All right.
So when Flow came along and they were recruiting people, Specs was one of those guys that comment, Ron, are you gonna apply? You gonna apply? And I basically at one point said, no, I don't think so. I'm gonna work. I can't do both. But I went and applied anyway because people expected me to.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went there, it was like running into a tank. There's this woman who did all the interviews. I didn't do my research. I didn't know anything about her, but she was an American and she didn't like me. I didn't like her. We didn't have a good chemistry together. So that interview didn't go very well. I knew I wouldn't get a job there, but I should have got a job there because I think I could have done anything at that radio station, not just be broadcaster, but the person in charge had an ego, the big boss. Okay, I would have represented a problem with him because me not used to having a boss.
Right.
I'm my own boss. I'm my own big man, and I don't kiss nobody's ass. I really never in my life. So maybe it was a good thing that I never had to be in his face.
Right.
You know what I mean? But whoever represented him did not give me a job there. And I think it was a shock to a lot of the community that Ron didn't get a job in Flow because, he's got so much qualification. Somebody like starting from scratch didn't have a good interview either, but he had a whole bunch of men behind him basically making those guys change their decision. So again, I just accepted it as one of those things. But as a competitive person, I had to deal with another radio show having a commercial, what do you call it? A commercial broadcasting signal could go throughout the entire, not Southern Ontario, Toronto, really. Their signal didn't turn out to be that great. So for a time, there's Reggae Mania and there's Spec Show and there's the shows on CIUT and the shows on CHRY and Dermot Williams doing a show. And those are all the reggae shows in Toronto in little bits and pieces. So I think people look at that as a marker. Maybe they look at it as one of the things that never happened that could have happened in my story or in the Toronto story, because again, I've made a success of everything that I've tried to do. If I was at Flow, who knows? Maybe they'd have good ratings by now. I don't know what the difference. I'd probably be the program director or the station manager or something like that. I could run the whole shit.
Yeah.
Right. But I'll tell you, people are very insecure out there. A lot of people are kind of scared of me. Like when I was, I received a Life Achievement Award one time, and Denham Jolly was there at the same time, and he got his award. I got my award. But when I did my little speech, I said, "Oh, by the way, tell Flo they should play more reggae in that station." Everybody clapped. Well, guess what? Afterwards, all of the people there are like, yeah, Ron, good thing you said that, man.
Yeah.
They're making sure that, nobody from Flow is watching them, right?
Don't let them see them giving you too much big up.
Exactly. So I'm the messenger. I'm the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
But I was told that day that I was going to be banned from the radio forever because Denim Jolly didn't like any. After I said what he said and he got the applause, it seems like he got embarrassed because he got up during my speech and he walked out.
Jesus.
Forgot his trophy. So the woman that he was with came back and then got it and left afterwards. And I've never actually sat down and talked to that man, but
Damn.
I should have worked in commercial radio. And after I stopped doing the radio, I guess people thought that would be the end of me. That's it for Ron, whatever. But I'm still here doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Not on the radio though. Not on the radio. But I'm doing what I'm doing.
Well, last couple of questions I have for you here, right?
Take your time. Go ahead.
With the media, do you think that the Canadian media, or let's say keep it Toronto, do you think that we have the right representation? Like I'm having an interview with you right now, but I complain all the time, like we barely have any outlets, man. Where we're at right now from where you came from, are we in a good place? Do we have enough representation?
I think that's a great question. I would have to think about that one. I guess you're looking at it. What kind of media? Are you talking media
like
that
places
can
where you can get to hear what who the new artists are? Like I have my gripes with Much Music and Complex Canada specifically. Like I interview all of the artists that could be on these different platforms. They'll only interview certain guys once they pass a certain threshold.
Yeah, just like the Junos, you're rated if you have the right numbers with your social media, for example. Right?
Not only that, because some of these guys who I interviewed, they get millions of views, but they'll never get invited to the Junos.
Why?
Because they're scared of them.
Yeah. Well, at least that's the truth. Yeah, I mean that's the right answer, right? There's certain elements that are too hip hop, right? Too raw. It's ironic. I don't know. In terms of outlets, I'll always stick to what I've always said is that Canada is a slack place when it comes to people with ambition and with ideas. We're full of talkers here and very few doers. And I've been saying that for 30 years. I came here from Jamaica and I've made something out of knowing that Canada is full of people who are comfortable coming in second. Seriously, when you think about that, anybody who comes in first in Canada, except for Drake, will get their asses kicked in America. Okay? We're just a little territory full of talented people. But the people that are in number one positions, it doesn't matter what they're doing in life, okay? There's room for you to get up there and get in there and exceed if you have it in you to work hard and follow your dream. Got a lot of people here who don't want to work hard. They're privileged, and they'll sit back a little bit and they still might have the skills where they're seen as number one, but there's room here to shake those and rattle those foundations. Canada and being Black is a land of opportunity. Okay, there's still a lot of opportunities to do first. So I don't find it discouraging in terms of a climate here. I think we've talked about so many things that are open avenues for progressive movements, including media outlets, whether it's a podcast, like I'm putting out songs. If I make a video, where am I going to go with it now? Is it worth spending $20,000 or $10,000 or even $5,000 a video if there's not enough places to play it? The days of Rap City are gone.
Yeah.
We don't have that outlet anymore where everyone is going to gather around their TV and watch the big show.
Yeah,
right?
scheduled viewing.
Yeah, so it's hard to kind of put it in perspective. Bottom line is people want to make money, right? But you gotta spend money to make money. Like even when I look around here, I can tell you've spent money, and people I'd say you've kept it simple, but you had to decide to take a gamble and go into your pocket because of the love of what you do.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who say, "I don't want to do that." Why not? I ain't gonna make any money.
Yeah.
And money makes the world go around. So people are in Canada, people are into fashion. They're into like dressing nice and having nice places, having nice cars. And we don't have that that thirst that people in New York have. When I went to New York back in those, where people are hungry and there's an exciting thing happening, and music is the common denominator. You know what I mean? So maybe one day it'll happen, but I'm telling you, the universities now are starting to cut broadcasting programs. I don't know if you've heard about that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like I think Humber's let go of their program, and one of the universities, they're no longer even teaching radio and television now, because radio's become a place where you used to be able to study to be qualified for it, but now if you're a former athlete, you're now the broadcaster
or
right?
a social media sensation or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The more of a name you have, the more they'll put you in the part. And so the whole dynamic has changed so everything is changing. The multimedia opportunities that are out there is exciting, but you've got to want it. Like, I love this environment. This is what I've done. This is what I do. I everything that I see here, I approve, but you got to pay rent. Right? At the end of the month, it might be a little space, but you're in an office, and at the end of it, the day, you go into your pocket to represent. But we don't have enough people out there that, that means I won't be able to buy my new tracksuit, man, or I need some new rims for my cars. Like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
That's going to cost me X amount of $100 a month. Like, no, man, let somebody else do it, man. Yo, put some money together with your brethren, man. Come up with an organization and do something, especially if you got something to say.
Yeah, no, straight up. And as you got into, you mentioned you're 62 now, but at 60 you decided to put out your first rap album. What made you decide to put out a rap album at 60 years old?
Well, I put out 5 albums at the same time because I couldn't just do one. The concept was called 40 Years Too Late, and it's because again, I'm one of those guys that just wanted to rap for the fun of it. And I had to make a choice in my career to, what am I going to do in music? Because I just love music. And I was a DJ and a promoter and a recording studio engineer and whatever else came with it, magazine editor. I've never had time to pursue rapping. So I put out a song again by Fluke in 88, but I actually put out my first record in 1980 called Breakdown, which is a bootleg record, but it's actually on vinyl and copies that I still have. So I felt I have an entitlement with all my experience to spit lyrics like everybody else. I've been an engineer. I've seen the game. I love rapping, even if I'm not a great rapper. I think I just have a right to get some of it, and I'm not talking about money. I just talk about enjoyment. So I happen to be a skilled engineer, and I don't have to spend the kind of money that a lot of people do putting out records. Because guess what? A lot of the people that I've grown up with are successful producers now, and they got a lot of love for me. They're showing me a lot of respect. And when I said I was going to do this thing, they all said, "Ron, what do you need?" And they've given me their beats, their training, their love.
Nice.
People like Too Rude, he's like the first producer out there to kind of believe in me and to give me a chance and not come with negative. Like back in the days, there's a lot of negative. Now Scam is like my number one producer, Scam from Concrete Mob.
Yeah. But
Alex Greggs, there's so many people that I've used to produce my stuff that are coming because of love. I can't say all the names. DJ X is a producer as well. That I've worked with, just so many talented people,
Yeah. No, that's dope, man. And I rate it that you're here and putting out music in these days and times, man.
Tell you what, I got let me see, I put out 5 albums with the 40 Years Too Late series, and then I put out some singles, and I just released a Blacker Than Black EP. And the next EP is going to be called On the Cover. And I believe I'm going to be, and maybe you can help me with this. I've never heard of a concept where a rap artist puts out an album that's entirely cover tunes. So that's what I'm doing. I'm putting out a rap project, but all the songs will be covers of other songs that have come out previously that hopefully you'll enjoy. And then after that, I'm going to put out another EP. And then by September, my next album should come out of completely original material. So right now I'm sitting on all that stuff, just waiting to release it. But most of the stuff is finished and polished and ready to go. So I'm evolving as an artist. So we haven't really talked about that. So when I started rapping, it was something to cement my legacy kind of thing, right? It was the 50th anniversary of hip hop. There's no better time to do it. I had all this energy because I started writing. I think a girl hurt me or something. And then I just was so depressed that I started having to do something when I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I can't sleep. So I started writing lyrics and then going back to something I used to do before, which was being a recording studio engineer. So the first 5 albums was my beginning, but there's been an evolution since then. So I can hardly wait for people to hear, what I'm coming out with next. My own style and my own market, because I'm older. And if you're going to rap today, you got to kind of think of the audiences that are out there for you. So I'm not trying to appeal to the audience that are younger and into all that gang stuff and trying to find themselves, but they're younger and they're cool and they can spit lyrics. They can rap way better than I can rap, way faster, more sophisticated in terms of everything that they do with rhyming and presentation. And that's cool. But I think there might be a market for people who are older as well, and they're not being served by an old school artist like myself, who is a little more political, has been through a little bit more life and will have a different perspective and different outlook on life. There's room for everybody in rap. So I'm just doing my little piece for my audience. I don't call myself really a hip hop rapper. I think I'm more of I don't know, I use the word hip hop, but that's not the right term either. But I'm making music, and you're going to hear it for yourself this year. I think this will be a good year for me making music. And I've got all different kinds of songs covering all different kinds of topics. But usually I'm politically based too. I have something to say about the world or say about women or saying something about this. But I always have something to say, a beginning, a middle, and an end kind of thing in my rapping. And I go a little slower so people can understand everything that I'm saying without having to, Google it to figure out. It's pretty clear. So I like what I'm doing with rapping and with music. And I will say it's early in my career. I don't have a lot of fans right now. I don't know if I had a show, how many people would come, because as much as I put my stuff out online and social media and stuff like that, it's not the same as having live performance opportunities. You know what I mean? Where you're there with a bunch of other artists and you get your turn kind of thing. I'm waiting for all that to kind of fall into place. But in the meantime, this is all I do in my spare time. I drive right now to make a living. Like, I drive a van. I own my own cargo van. I drive a truck sometimes. So that's how I make money. But as soon as I get back to my crib and I eat my dinner, I go to the computer and I'm making music every single day. So I'm having the time of my life because I have an opportunity not to be caught up into that whole 9-to-5 lifestyle. I can make music pretty well, whatever I want. And I'm just trying to get as much of it as I can while I'm still gifted to have a voice and to have my health and to have my body. Because for some reason, people stop rapping when they turn 60.
Yeah.
We can look around and try and find rappers over 60 that are still putting out music today. I think I'm Canada's oldest rapper that's active right now. And maybe that's not true, but I'm looking at the Canadian map to see, if I want to collaborate with another rapper my age, who can I find? I can't find anybody yet. So let me know who's out there that's putting out music that's relevant, and maybe I can do something with them. But right now,
let us know in the comments below.
Young man's game right now. So all these kids be rapping, but they turn producer when they turn 60. They stop.
Yeah, or they just retire and go to Florida.
Yeah, don't want to go there anymore. Don't go to America. Not right now, man. Not a good place.
With everything that you've gone through, right? What's one thing that a Ron Nelson now, and let me see if I could pick the right age, would tell an 18-year-old Ron Nelson?
Oh, that's okay. That's a good question. An 18-year-old Ron Nelson. All right. So
if you could just tap him on the shoulder and be like, Ron, do this.
I would say don't be like me and use your own money for everything that you've done. Hustle that money. Hustle that money. I don't mean it has to be dirty money, but we're in a age now where you can probably get sponsorship if you take a more corporate approach. Partner up with people who are good at that if you're not good at that yourselves, and give them a piece of the pie for the work that they do. But most people get jobs from people who they know, people who like them. It's not their actual qualifications. So if you don't look at yourself as a one-man band, you against the world, I think it's a good idea to have teams in trying to achieve your ambition. So if you're going to do it, I did not have any guidance. I did not have anyone to look at as a role model that can say, this is how you do it, Ron.
Yeah.
And I think now there's a lot of people you can consult with if you want to do anything, even if you think your idea is incomplete, but you have a hunch or you have, an intuition that maybe this will be good, bounce it off people and get that money, because the money's out there. There's lots of money out there, especially for Black entrepreneurism. And you've just got to kind of, go find it. But I gambled with my own money. It cost me my first house, that I bought. I actually lost that house. And the only reason I bought that house because I needed a place to put my recording studio, right? I didn't do things as smart as I could have done. So don't be like me. It's nice to make history and to have a legacy and everything. But I think if it was today, now, I would say try and keep your money for yourself. But everything that you do, either get some investors, create a company, create if 10 people put $100 in, then they each lose $100. If you put that $1,000 in, you lose $1,000.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So partner up and put on a big show and do something. Lots of room for innovation, man, but try not to use your own money if possible. And I think before I was saying that was one of the good things that I did was use my own money, because I did partner with an organization who were not credible. And that was my last hip hop show, was when we lost money because they didn't have any money left. So I'm saying this advice, keeping that in mind, don't be stupid, but get that money, G. The money's out there to get, so go get it.
Yeah, well said, sir. Well said. Last question I have for you. In the end of the day, when all the smoke clears, how do you want the people to remember Ron Nelson?
Sure. I don't know, man. That question's kind of morbid. I don't know. I
don't mean when you're dead or something. I
know what you
when
mean.
people are looking back at Canadian hip hop history, looking back at you and your career and your life. You know what I'm saying? And like, how do you want to be remembered to the people?
I know that's up to the people, man. There's been so many things written, and my life has been pretty well there for everyone to see. Google my name, DJ Ron Nelson. You'll see so much about me. But I met somebody when I got my my star at the Scarborough Walk of Fame, and it was this woman who sat down with me and my mom, and she really didn't understand who I was or what I did and why I got a star. So she summated in the end, because she was kind of brilliant. She said, "Oh, so you're an urban shapeshifter. You're responsible for shape shifting a whole Canadian movement." And I'm like, so that's kind of cool. So I think if they were to categorize me, they would need a lot of chapters in the book, because I'm not one dimensional. My accolades, achievements is rare, because not very many people can have success in hip hop, then have success in reggae and dancehall. You know what I mean? So I like the fact that I've been through both territories. But to be honest, I think I want people to remember me based on the music that I'm making and that I will be making until I turn 70, which is when I'm going to stop. So my plan is to keep doing albums and putting out music. And if I can still be rapping and sounding like I am, if my voice doesn't go like this because I'm an old man, You know, I should be able to still keep rapping when I'm 70. And I know who else can say that they're going to do that before me.
Yeah. Hey.
Music makes you immortal. So that's the only ego I have is I know those things. So I'm trying to make music, but in a way, I'm trying to immortalize myself because when you're dead, your music lives, just like your movies and your videos and stuff like that. And as an artist, that's the difference now than the old Ron Nelson is. Before there was no music. Excuse me. There was no music, but now I can be remembered by DJs and podcasts who might say, let me play a little Ron Nelson for you. Little DJ Ron. He was a nice guy. But, you know, we didn't understand his songs before, but let's rock this and see what he was really taught. Whatever. When I'm finished, I'm gonna rattle and shake a little bit. Like people don't know what I have in store musically. So, you know, rap is an opportunity, and all my life I've been able to kind of make inroads and shake the foundations a little bit. I haven't finished doing this rap thing yet. So by the time I'm done, I think my voice will be heard, you know, and people will have something musical to remember me by.
Yeah, man. I feel like the chapters in the book are continuing. You know what I'm saying? We're not closing it off yet. And you know, the pen is still out for Ron Nelson. And I'm excited to see everything that you got coming up in the future. And I got to say again, this is an honor for me to be able to talk to you about your experiences and everything from the past and bring you up to where we are now, man. You know, you've been foundation in this game. And I want to thank you for all your contributions and everything that you've done for us in our game over here.
Thank you, Friday. Appreciate that. It's sincere. I like when things are sincere, and I think you're sincere in what you're saying. So I appreciate it. And, you know, I like the fact that you're seeking knowledge, you know, like you have an opportunity to educate the bases out there with this platform. So that's a cool thing, man. They used to say in the old days, Black people don't read. It was like a big joke, you know?
Yeah.
But we read now. And we're looking up our history now. We want to know where this whole thing came from, where it started. So there's not a lot of people around like me now that goes away. Like I said, I don't know where these people are. So I'm speaking on behalf of an era that I was there for. But there's a lot of people out there that are qualified to, you know, kind of show their perspectives as well. I didn't see it all, but I saw my little corner. So it's nice to be able to represent and acknowledge that there was a time before hip hop. And that was my time. And there's just rap.
Yeah.
It's all good. But yeah, man, keep up good work, G.
No, thank you.
And all those young rappers out there, big up, man.
Yeah, man.
You can make it.
Ron Nelson in the DJ Ron Nelson.
DJRonNelson.com.
DJ Ron Nelson in the building. Go to DJRonNelson.com. What's your Instagram?
At DJ Ron Nelson on IG, and you'll get all my ish in my IG. I'm on TikTok as well, DJ Ron Nelson. Facebook, DJ Ron Nelson, and whatever I'm missing as well. Whatever, man. There's more.
All social media platforms.
All social media platforms.
You'll see his IG pop up on the bottom of the screen. Big salute to all of my sponsors that you'll also see popping up on the bottom of the screen. I'm going to take us out here for my audio audience. I thought it was Night of the Living Bassheads, but it was Rebel Without a Pause. Let's do that right there.
All right.
Ron Nelson in the building. We are off of this.
We love hip hop.
If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to check out these other videos on the screen and make sure to like and subscribe.
We love hip hop.